I've been noticing something that I used to apply it to a specific group of people, but then I realized, there's a broader context of it. And that's how the left tries to act like it's so progressive and it's accepting, but then they beat people over the head to accept whatever the hell it is that they're on. And I'm saying, all of this is like vague and undefinable. Everybody has a different definition. It's like when you go over to the LGBT community and they had that panel of LGBTQ people that were sitting up there trying to define like what all the various things that were going on, and even they disagreed amongst themselves, like the transgender women that actually had the surgery versus those that didn't. And you had the one guy up there, he started crying and he got upset, and because you had the woman who, or the man that went through the full transition, basically saying like, you're fucking it up, like you're just weird, you're like a woman with a beard, like one of them like man women, at the circus in the 1880s, the bearded woman type of shit, like, which is just weird, and I've been seeing a lot lately, especially with the Zillennials, right? Not my generation, but especially with the Zillennials, I've been seeing a lot of these women that, like, they don't know, like, where they're going, what they're doing. They kind of, like, sweep shit underneath the broad umbrella of feminism. Like this stuff with the whole abortion thing, right? Even though I think it's largely about white population control and them wanting to increase the numbers and not be outvoted by minorities, I just look at the simple fact, or I also look at the simple fact that it's like you're voting for the right to be sexually irresponsible. Like, if you don't want to have a baby, then just whatever. I mean, use condoms, use birth control. Like, there's a million ways for you not to get pregnant, right? But yet they're fighting for the right to have an abortion. And I'm saying, I know someone who knows someone, who had 11 abortions before they had the last 4 children. They had 11 abortions. Basically, they were using abortion like birth control. I dated a chick that had a late term abortion. She aborted her child at 7 months. A child at 7 months can survive. All you got to do is basically give them surfactant, artificial surfactant, because I think it's like right around 7 months that's when the lungs are developed enough for them to breathe air. But you typically got to give like artificial surfactant. Anyway, it's like this is where my sexism comes in, right? Because like Cap asked me a really profound question the other day. It was a simple question, it was a profound question about the whole abortion thing. And it was like, how does abortion affect you? He's like, what women are you out here getting pregnant where you got to worry about whether they get or don't get an abortion? I was like, that's a damn good point. I was like, it doesn't affect me. Yeah, he's like, because you're sexually responsible. He's like, these women are not. Which again, brings in the sexism of, right, you hear all this equality and we want to run shit and everything coming from women. And it's like, think about letting somebody want to run shit that is fighting for the right to be irresponsible. Because that's what abortion is. You're fighting for the right to be irresponsible. I don't even know shit about my body, my choice, all this other shit. Yeah, it is their body. But that still doesn't change the fact that you were sexually irresponsible in how you got pregnant in the first place. You and the dude that you got pregnant by. But I'm going to put it on the women because the women have final say as to who has access to their body and who they get pregnant by. Use a condom or use birth control. If you're using both, it's like 99.99999999999% effective. But no, they don't want to do that. Right? Sexually irresponsible. Now the child has to suffer. And one of the reasons why I can't say I'm for or against abortion is because it's like, what's worse, a child being aborted or all the neglect that we see out here when it comes to these children that are born and are raised, but without resources, right? What's worse, to not be here or to be raised in screwed up conditions? And when I ask that question, I always think of that woman on the Amistad that, when she saw that man getting beat, sat up on the edge of the ship and with her clutching her baby and threw herself off the edge of the ship. Better to be dead than be a slave, right? That was a form of abortion and self-abortion. Better to be dead than be a slave. She made that choice for herself and her child. So I look at it like that. I hear people talking all this dumb shit. I'm getting on abortion. I don't want to make this video about abortion, but I hear people talking all this dumb shit about, oh, you're aborting doctors and everything, and da 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 da. And I'm like, shut up. How is the child gonna become a doctor or whatever if there's no solid foundation and there's no investment in the child like there should be? Again, you're dealing with sexually irresponsible people, which is typically going to spill into financially irresponsible people, right? And people that don't have a solid foundation for themselves, let alone a solid foundation for their own children, which ends up, spilling into the community, and then it's a problem that everybody else has to deal with. The same woman who doesn't abort her child and her child doesn't get what they need is the same child that ends up growing up to be a gangster and ends up shooting your child. Now you got to go to a funeral. You done invested everything in your child so that your child has a solid foundation and that they're on the straight and narrow, so to speak, and they get blown away by the sexually irresponsible woman's child that, technically speaking, she probably should have had the abortion, right? That's why I don't get into that crap. But anyway, talking about the left and all their radical shit and trying to get people to accept everything, I keep seeing like these zillennial artistic women. They got sleeve tattoos, they got tattoos on their face, they have like just crazy funky styles, and like before that, like, didn't used to bother me, right? But then like a lot of that is combined with just, it's anti-structure. Like I'm like, oh, she's artsy. I didn't think that she was artsy and a feminist. I didn't think that. I was like, oh, she likes art. That's cool. Oh, you made this? That's cool. You know what I mean? Like we need people with skills and artistic people in the world. I'm not knocking that at all. But I don't know why it always has to be combined with anti-structure, right? And then you're going to dive into anti-marriage and all that. But the stupid thing is a lot of women, they want, again, as I've said, the benefits of structure, the benefits of a man's discipline, even though they don't really respect or value it. And the other thing I see when I see a lot of these artsy fartsy women is I see damage. I've almost like in all the time that I've been on this planet, what I've noticed is that rarely do I come across a woman who's artistic and doesn't have some sort of psychological damage because she was either sexually violated or found out some crazy wild shit. Like I came across a woman who she recently found out that her biological father is not her father. Black woman. And she asked her dad about it, and the dad was like, go ask your mother, because he's not the one that cheated. She also went and tried to find her biological father, found him, and when she confronted him, he was basically like, I don't know what you're talking about. He wanted no parts, which is fucked up on his part, because I'm like, man, you got a little girl out there. I mean, she's grown now. It's not like he's got to pay for child support or anything. Like, she's grown. But at the same time, I kind of do get, his knee-jerk reaction to shut it down, because this man probably has a family of his own. he probably has a marriage that he's never cheated in. Not to say that he was cheating. Maybe he was cheating. Who knows? Right? But also the fact that this woman's mother kept this a secret away from him. He didn't know. So she didn't know. The daughter didn't know. And he didn't know. And now, like, she's, out there, she shaved her head. She wants to get a bunch of tattoos. I'm like, damn, like, the damage, emotional damage. Yeah, the damage, and it's like, and they just become like, because their whole world becomes unraveled in terms of being a part of this happy, nuclear family and everything. Then they go rogue against it. Which I ask some people about that. I'm like, why do women do that? Like me, I've had my bouts of depression. I've had, when I'm single, what I do? I'm in the fucking gym. You know what I'm saying? I don't care what it is. The answer to it, the solution to it is the fucking gym. You know what I mean? I get out my aggression. You know what I mean? It helps me to continue to look better, right? You get compliments and shit like that, right? Makes you feel good. You're healthy, right? You don't have any other physical ailments and whatnot. Like that's how I cope. That's how I deal with the shit. That's my therapist, right? I've seen people say that, they go out and they get a motorcycle or something like that, feel like they're flying. That's their therapist. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, you take a negative and you turn it into a positive. You try to do something constructive. You take that negative energy and you try to do something constructive. I see people, or women in particular, man, the way y'all cope with shit is fucked up. Y'all will cope with shit getting into abusive relationships. Y'all will cope like something will emotionally fuck you up, and then you will enter a situation that will further emotionally fuck you up. You all will do shit like eat yourself to death. Then you get fat, then you get big, then you become undesirable to a higher percentage of the general population of men. Then you're upset about that, right? Because now you can't attract the guys that you want. You may be able to get a quality guy to come in your life, but you're most certainly not going to be able to do it now. Or you'll go out there and you'll have a baby, thinking a baby's going to complete. Like, y'all do, like, this is why I just feel like women shouldn't be in the driver's seat, man, because y'all too emotional. And y'all do destructive shit. Just fucking yourself up. Like a man, it's like, hey, wait, hold on now. Man, I can't be fucking up my money. Hold on now. I can't go out here and do some shit that's gonna, really screw me up in the long run. But women, man, y'all go out here. It'd be, I'm saying, it may be something major. It may be something small. I see women take small things that happen and then they just go rogue. And I'm like, damn, like this is something that could have been fixed or corrected. But you done taken it to a whole nother level where now it can't be fixed. A child is a permanent situation. What are you doing? And then not only will they have one, they'll have two. And so, like, every time I see these women that are artistic and artsy fartsy and everything else, I can't help to think that there's some major damage going on there. And some of these women are beautiful, like just naturally beautiful. Like if you get rid of all like the accessories and all the bullshit and the fucking, ear piercings and nose rings and tattoos and sleeves and fucking, dyed hair and, when they get, like if you remove all the Dennis Rodman bullshit, you know what I mean? You sitting there, you're like, damn, man, like that's a bad bitch underneath all that. Right? And it's like, you can't even say that. They get offended at that. I'm not here for your public consumption. You know what I mean? Like, really? I'm just admiring a beautiful woman and saying that you're beautiful. Shit, I'm over here fantasizing about your ass. But no. That's problematic. Right? Just like that LGBT chick that was sitting on that panel. I haven't even finished watching that shit. I will eventually. But, when she was sitting up there, talking about a heteronormative cisgendered man telling a trans woman that I want to date you, but you can't have kids is a form of violence. I'm like, a form of violence? Really? A form of violence? And like I said, technically speaking, and I'm like, y'all don't have beef with heteronormative cisgender men. You got beef with gay men and bisexual men who don't want to come out the closet. All these beautiful heteronormative cisgender women out here, and a dude is out there fucking with you. That nigga gay. That nigga is gay. Plain and simple. Trying to put that shit on straight men that don't fuck with your ass. And LG and trans women, trans black women are getting killed. Yeah, getting killed by bisexual men and gay men that don't want to come out the damn closet. That's what they getting killed by. Especially if you one of these quote unquote women or men that want to call themselves transgender, but you still swinging around a dick. What's that shit called in like the porn section? It's like Futurama or some shit. Futurama or something. I don't know what the heck it's called. You know what I mean? They be having anime characters and then just throw a dick on the bitch and have her fucking another bitch. Like, I'm like, what the hell is this shit? It's people that are into that shit. Those are your trans lovers. Go date them. No, we want to date hyper masculine heteronormative cisgendered men. Hyper masculine heteronormative cisgender men ain't gonna be into you, boo boo. They're sweet and they're masquerading as masculine men. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. I'm just saying, and let me add this to the video, right? Because I want to talk even with the artistic folks. Right, so this brother left a comment called Grand Canyon 2. He said, and this is in response to the video that I did about the dude, in Florida. But he says at 29 minutes, he says it's simple. The educated guys are not going to help the group of men who got the benefits of the community, aka women and sexual access and praise, while these 9-to-5 brothers stayed out of trouble and went to work and didn't commit crimes. In most cases, these 9-to-5 brothers, educated lames, were called whack or corny by both the women and the men, excluded in some cases, targeted for robbery or jumped. Hold on a second. Now, wait a second. Why is this not working? Okay. Now you got a situation where you got the women, with probably over half of them being single mothers with children by ex-street goons or current ones demanding 9-to-5 brothers date them seriously and take care of all the children and bring in resources. At the same time, you got street dudes upset 9-to-5 brothers can operate and move better because they don't have criminal records. These street dudes upset the 9-to-5 brothers won't get them a hookup or help them out or be a reference for getting work. If the 9-to-5 brothers or If the 9-to-5 brothers or educated lames say no, the women and men call them sellouts and bring up black unity. Now, I agree with the whole aspect of, being shamed with black unity. In terms of a man that wants to, turn his shit around, like I said, I don't try to judge people. It depends on their situation and their circumstance. Guys that come from the hood that were on the straight and narrow, they got a lot more sympathy than me. Because they can say I came from the bottom too, and I didn't go that route. Where I didn't come from the bottom, so I can't say that. I can't use that argument because, arguably people would be like, well, you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth, so it was easy for me not to make those type of hard decisions between eating and not eating. So I'm less likely to judge, from that standpoint. The part that I do get, and this ties back to, these artistic women and women who've been damaged, and even women that, we'll throw in the women that, they had some stupid idea about, the streets, and, they had a baby and whatnot. Yeah, that does not sit well with me. And I've talked about that before, and, women will talk about being the prize and everything and think that they're intrinsically valued, not understanding that there are things that they have to do, again, within this structure, this patriarchal structure, that they have to do in order to be valued by, a man that's worth a damn. This whole aspect of going out there and getting with whoever, especially busting it wide open and having, Pookie's baby, or a man that isn't going to stick around, or, has significantly less means or can't provide for you, let alone himself. That's not cute. You know what I mean? That speaks to the woman's value. On top of the fact, like I said before, there's nothing worse for a hardworking man to have to hear about how some other man got you off of the strength of nothing. There's nothing worse than that. Hearing a guy or guys talk about how they passed around like they didn't have to make any sacrifices. They didn't have to make any investment. You've now invested in this woman, and these guys will point out the fact that you got her off of the strength of nothing. Talking about she's the community bicycle, shit like that. Right? You hear this in all type of songs, between songs from Juicy J to Uncle Murder. They love to make songs about how you got the bitch that we've all fucked. They love to throw that up there. These are street dudes. That shit doesn't sit well with lames. The idea is, like, you shouldn't have to force anybody into any situation. Right? A woman shouldn't have to force a man not to cheat on her. And a man shouldn't have to force a woman, to not cheat on him. So there should be an understanding and agreement, between, men who are providing a particular lifestyle and the women that are attached to those men and with those men. But it seems like that social contract has been completely broken. And then to confuse things, you bring in the feminism, and you bring in all this artsy fartsy shit. And like, some of that I can't charge, if a woman's been damaged, I can't fully charge that. But, like, sometimes, like, I just look at them, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, can't you see the forest for the trees? What are you doing? And this is what I think is the whole miscommunication, and a part of the problem with not only not having fathers in the home, and the women that went out there and fathered children or mothered children, whatever you can call it, with the wrong men, because, if those men are absent, right, or those men aren't productive, right, we have this world where women sit around and they co-sign each other. They co-sign each other. They tell their daughters a bunch of bullshit that's not true, right? The idea of even considering what a productive man even wants out of a woman is, like, not there. They just think, hey, I got a pussy, I'm a prize. Hey, all I got to do is lay on my back, and I'm valued, I'm worth something. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, not to a man who thinks beyond pussy. Not to a man who thinks beyond that. You know what I mean? Like, what do you think? You're going to be smashing? It's just going to be orgies until you're fucking 75? There's more to things than to life than that. Especially when you talk about raising kids and raising a family, and, where are your kids going to go to school, and, got to make sure that they're in the right space, in the right environment, and we don't want them being impacted or affected by these certain, these negative things. That's why I said, if you look at all these street niggas that make it, they got money and shit like that, when they got their kids, all of their kids are lame. Every last one of them kids are lame. Why? Because they grew up in the burbs. Why didn't you grow them up in the inner city? Because they got out of there because they didn't want to be over there, ended up like King Von and FBG Duck and, all these other rappers that get smoked in their own city, Young Dolph and all this shit. They didn't want to end up like that. And they didn't want their kids to be around that because the kids would have been a target. So I'm like, if the kids don't grow up in that environment, don't think that they're going to come out being hard. They're not going to be hard. That's the irony of all the contempt for the ELs, because pretty much everybody wants their kids to be more like an EL than be like a street dude. You know what I mean? If you growing up in a wealthy background, it's like you're like Nunu. You're like going out of your way to be in the streets. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I could have done it, but I would have had to go out of my way. You know, it doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. You know, but I do, you know, I do feel that comment, even though I know that comment ultimately is not going to culminate to anything. You know, like at the end of the day, that means like if brothers got that much resentment, no, they're not gonna build for these women. They're not gonna mentor any of these boys that desperately need mentoring. You know, and folks like to put it on the ELs for feeling this way. I'm like, nah, like again, like you can't be on this bullshit and then assign responsibilities to somebody else where they have no respect, no reward, none of that shit. You know, I mean, and this goes back to it. I'm gonna drop this video. It's about Rambo First Blood. And it's one of the things that really, you know, that even when it came to, Cap sent me the link and I watched it. Now, I mean, I've been seeing the movie, but I watched this guy cover the video. And one of the things that got covered is how Vietnam was basically the first war where the veterans, when they came home, they were spit on. You know what I mean? Like they were completely and totally spit on. They didn't get, a warrior's welcome when they came home. They were called baby killers and all type of shit. And that's kind of what has happened to the hardworking man in the black community. But then everybody wants to jump up and bitch about, oh, why they not building, for us? I got 3 kids now I had with a Dusty. I need them to do this and do that. That's why we don't respect you, because y'all niggas don't build nothing. And it's almost like how white supremacy does. How white supremacy tries to put ending racism on the backs of black people. No, that's white people need to stop racism. They're the ones that facilitated. They're the ones that started it. They're the ones that need to end it. Don't try to put that on black people. Black people out here responding to racism. Like the dude that shot up the train in the subway in New York, responding to racism and try to make it like, oh, see, all the black people are being raped. No, they're responding to it. That is the response that you get for creating this racist ass system. That's the anger that you get. It's like them white people that sit there and talk about 9/11 and fucking 19 guys with box cutters hijack a plane and slam 2 of them into a fucking building, into the towers, and then obviously you got the Pentagon and the one that crashed in Pennsylvania. But I'm saying that's a lot of anger. And what do white people say? Oh, they hate us because they hate our freedom. They hate us because of who we are as Americans. Really? That's why they hate you? You know what I'm saying? And that's the same thing. That's the same thing that goes on against educated lames, in the black community, or squares, or productive men in the black community. That's the same thing. Motherfuckers are mad and people just gaslight the shit out of them. They just hate us because we're black women. It's because we're black. Really? That's where all that anger comes from? You know what I'm saying? This motherfucker got at least 18 to 20 years of anger built up in him, and you're gonna just they hate us because we're black women. For real? Did you not listen to what the dude gave specific reasons? He gave specifics, and you just gonna dismiss it? It's just a part of self-hatred and colorism. Really? He doesn't have any valid point, no valid points? Really? It's that dismissive shit. It's like nobody wants to conform. Everybody, oh, we're fighting the system, the white heteronormative cisgendered patriarchy, all that shit. And then black men, oh, you're just a cheap imitation, so we're gonna buck you too. Oh, but by the way, we want the benefits of your discipline, and we want the benefits of whatever structure it is that you're providing, because now we need it. Because I didn't invest in myself, or I wasted time fucking with a fuck nigga. Oh, now we need it. And the same applies to the dudes. Man, how come I ain't making money like you? Well, I mean, what did you do over the course of the last, 25 years or whatever? Well, I was out there, like my man said in the video. He's like, I left. I went to a different state. I came home, and it's the same nigga on the block. It's the same dude doing the same shit that I saw when I left. And this is a street dude talking about other street dudes. So you already know that ELs and squares are not crazy when they talk about this shit. That the onus is not on them for leaving the community. I'm like, there's not enough gravity there to keep people there. Like it's not actually a community. It's just a neighborhood. Communities function. Communities have libraries and social services and hospitals and pharmacies and grocery stores and police services and the power grid services and shit. Like, oh shit, the power goes out, 5 black men show up at your door with yellow hard hats. Like, this doesn't go on. You know what I mean? Like, the black community is a place where it's not serviced. Things go into disrepair and they stay unrepaired because the people in that environment don't have any resources. But it's like, we can talk about white supremacy all day, right? But it doesn't seem that we're like very resource minded or resource focused. And we could argue about whether that's the byproduct of prolonged exposure to poverty. You put somebody in a box, for so long, they don't, why are they going to sit there and have faith and belief in shit that they don't have access to? But the part that gets me is everybody knows the value of these resources and what they want to have access to when they get to a certain age or they get to a certain point, or they see somebody else, making shit manifest, getting it out the mud. Oh, they recognize the value then. But when cats are on their journey and they're on their grind, it's not a whole bunch of respect. It's not a whole bunch of respect. I see this shit. Go talk to your Indian friends if you have any. You know what I mean? Or your Asian friends. They got this, what do they call it? The little emperors complex. Like, that's how much they focus on the sons to exceed and excel. Little emperor, right? And I'm not saying shit needs to go to that extreme, but it's just like, just the whole orientation, the way that they look at, you're my son. You are going to go out there and do great things. Like, that's not going on in the black community. Black community is role reverse. Like I said, that woman said to me, and I quote, "My daughter will be president and my son will be a good black man." Then he didn't even get a title. He didn't even get a title. Just a good black. What does that mean? He serves the gynocracy. He serves the queen. He serves the matriarchy. That is the height of what her expectation was for her son, even though she's arguing my daughter's going to be president. I'm like, you got no business being a feminist like that, and you got a son out here. And then again, we wonder why some of these men end up jumping the fence and getting with other races of women and whatnot. This is his own mother speaking about him. He will be a good black man. I'm like, what? Not he'll be an engineer, not he'll be a doctor or a lawyer, a CPA, a pharmacist, right? None of these things. No, he will be a good black man. That's all he can achieve. You see? But yet, if he bucks, that bullshit and somehow actually becomes a productive man, then all of a sudden everybody got their hand out. You need to come back into the community and fix the community. Why does he need to come back into the community and fix everybody else's problems if at best you said that all he could be was a good black man? No title, no skill set, undefinable. But he needs to come back and fix all of this because now we see that he has something. You know what I mean? That 11th hour, freaking, fourth quarter, 30 seconds on the clock, recognition isn't going to work. It's not going to work. First off, with that, there's no, like, this is why the shaming doesn't really work, because there's no bond and there's no connection that has been made. It's one of the things that I've had to learn over the years when it comes to, you want to run through a lot of women, you gotta grab a piece of real estate in her mind. You have to make a connection with her first. Once you make that connection and she feels comfortable with you, then you can bust it wide open. And this is one of the things that street dudes are capable of doing that lames, haven't got yet. At least, I would argue that they haven't gotten. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing. The community has not grabbed a piece of real estate in the mind of lames, because they've been ignored and chastised and neglected and abused and all that other shit. Like, you haven't established, an idea like, nah, these people have my back, I gotta have their back. A lot of times when I talk to brothers that come from the inner city that made it out, man, they always come with that same line. They're like, man, what the hood ever do for me? You know what I mean? They always, every last one of them. Man, what the hood ever do for me? If you start talking about community shit and what needs, this is back in my early days, when I was like, yeah, we should be doing these things, right? But I noticed immediately I was getting tons of resistance. Man, what the hood ever do for me? Ain't nobody support them and everything. And they usually had to go the long way around. They had to join the military. They had to, they joined the military, then they got out, then they used the GI Bill to go to school, then they finally secured their first job using the experience that they had from the military, which, helped them move forward. Then they over there working for NASA, and now they're living this upper middle class lifestyle. And they did that shit all on their own. You know what I mean? Or the only person that really supported them might have been just their one parent, which typically will be their mother. And but like, the women will try to act like they're because they're black women, that they're your mothers. I'm like, you're not our mothers. So, that'll be the one woman in the world, and that's typically what you see. You'll see brothers that they don't have no connection with other black women outside of their own mother. And they'll be you'll see it, especially when at the end of life, when their mothers are sick and everything, and they're leaving work early so that they can go and see their mother in the nursing home, or go and or they get the nurse and everything. Their mother's in hospice. I seen that shit, man. You know what I mean? Like mom gets A1 treatment because that's the only one that was there for them. I'm talking about the ones that aren't radical feminists, that actually do care and love their child because it's their child. You know what I mean? But in terms of acting like that applies to the rest of the fucking community, all the other black women, and it's bullshit. It's bullshit. Black men have connections with their mothers. They don't have connections with other black women in the community. And this goes back to I Am Milan. She brought this point up about black women, because they feel abandoned. She's like, I don't necessarily agree with it, but she's like, they feel abandoned. I'm like, abandoned by who? By who? The dudes that they were fucking with? How can you feel abandoned by guys that you weren't dealing with? I don't understand that shit. But I mean, this is where the rift and the gap is in the community. I personally, listening to the Cynthia G's and the fucking, all these women that are just on some man-hating, the divestors and all that crap. This is the untold story that always doesn't. It's all women always come to the stage with that they're victims and shit to the evils of black men and whatnot. Even the black men that they don't respect, don't desire, and have zero regard for. It's somehow their fault. And when they go out there and they get with the guys that have blatant red flags, it is the fault of the other men that aren't coming to the rescue to fix all of their problems, and that's why they don't have respect for the collective of black men, right? Because the fact of the matter is most of these women, especially the divestors, most of them already have children. And it's already been proven and shown that there's way more childless black men than there are black women. That's already been shown. So a lot of times what you're seeing is a lot of women with buyer's regret. You know? And typically the fact that so many black men, especially those that exercise delayed gratification in order to get to where they want to get to. The beauty about waiting until you're in your 30s to decide whether you want to start a family or not is you're making a calculated decision at that point, not an emotional decision. Not a oops baby because we were having sex and it felt good, or it's very passionate. That's a lot of hormones and emotions, and sex is a new experience. Oh man, I remember those days. You know what I mean? Where like the pussy would just cloud your mind. I mean, there was no better place to be than between a woman's legs. You know what I'm saying? And then there's shit like, now that I'm older, like there's shit that like, like looking back, I'm like, man, I appreciate that shit. The clear skin, the youthful skin, the lack of just, the damage from stress and everything. It's not in their face. And that's one of the reasons why men continue to like young women. It's just not something I would openly advocate for. Like I said before, that's one of the reasons why I argued, yes, BGSIB more. Like I tried to tell your ass that Kevin wasn't going to go mainstream. You see how the media is throwing his ass underneath the bus now? He was never going to go mainstream. YouTube, just like with Lily Singh, that's like the best that he could do. You know what I mean? They threw his ass underneath the bus, and they're going to continue to throw his ass underneath the bus. You cannot go up there talking that Kevin said too many things that he can't take back. Primarily shit about, man, I can't beat him off with a stick. I'm 50 years old, and I'm going to be getting with 25-year-olds. It's not something you advocate for, even though we all know it goes down. There's always been a secret, relationship between young, beautiful women and older, wealthy men. That's always been understood. But it's not something that you go out there and you actively promote, which is what I get on brothers about, because they conflate their own personal desires with the message that you want to portray for a community. You know what I'm saying? Like you want to get people to buy into those beliefs first. Then whatever the exceptions are, people will be like, well, I know this pastor, he doing that, so this person, they doing that, and this, that, and the third. But you've already established a solid foundation of trust. But you can't come in the gate talking about, yeah, man, yeah, all these bitches are single, but we're advocating for waiting till you're 40 to fucking get married and have kids with women that are literally half your age. And if you don't get married at 40, get married at 50 and then do it. Or get married at 40, then divorce your wife by 45 and then just try all over again at 50. Like the fuck? I already knew that was never going to work. Again, I had my own missteps and misquotes or whatever, in my own YouTube history. So watching somebody else new come into the space, I'm like, you fucking up. Don't say that. You fucking up. Don't say that. But yeah, I'm just sharing, my thoughts on like where just shit is. And I again, like I used to think, man, I could go and reach back a couple years, and get with some of the zillennials and shit like that. Man, they're fucked up, because you got to think, and it's just going to continue to get progressively worse, because we're getting further and further and further away from structure. Just like that dude he made a video. What was it? Hammer. He calls himself Hammer. He only has 2 videos. I like his content, by the way. He reminds me of Pink Elephant. But Hammer, he said right in the video, he's like, we ain't on patriarchy. We're on equality 50-50. That's what we were raised in and whatnot. And I was just like, wow. I'm like, damn. I can't say anything. I'm like, this is a zillennial saying the shit. I can't say shit. But I can't blame him because, like, even I sent the video to Cap, and even Cap was just like, nah. He's like, I need to be put in a museum. And I said, why? And he said, because, man, he's like, these guys, you got to think, like, shit was already declining when I was coming up. He's like, you didn't even see, this sort of, intact patriarchal community. He's like, the zillennials damn sure didn't see it. They damn sure didn't see it. And what do you think is going to happen with the next generation? They're like, there's not even the residue of patriarchal structure in the black community anymore. There's not even the residue of it. The only time that you're going to see what even remotely looks like a patriarchal structure is a black family in the suburbs in a predominantly white community. And those will be your little token, families and whatnot. And, those people, especially the ones, I'm like, you got sons and daughters. I'm like, you need to, I don't know what you need to do. You need to form a Jack and Jill organization or something and get your kids to meet and greet and rub shoulders with each other, because your selection, the pool that you're going to pull from, it ain't shit. The mass, the pool that the population, of black people, it ain't shit. So you better get your kids acquainted. Otherwise, you're going to be up there talking that dumb shit that Shaquille O'Neal is talking. My sons, when they're 18, they got to get out. But my daughters, they can stay here as long as they want to, because I'm going to keep putting ducats in their bucket. Really? Advocating for fucking matriarchy. It's just retarded shit. But anyway, I'm done. I need to end this video. So that's all I got to say. That's my video. SWP out.